Now, I don't know about you, but I like medicine. I mean, of course, who doesn't appreciate the continued miracle of modern medicine that has given humanity the ability to battle microbes and bacteria that managed to kill millions of people in the past, with it all only costing a few quid down at your local pharmacy? At least it would in an ideal world without giant pharmaceutical corporations abusing government regulations to monopolise and artificially inflate the prices. But anyway, with the lives of billions in their hands, the medical industry is overflowing with funds to source new ways to save and enhance lives. Personally, I think they are much more invested in long-term treatments over cures because that's where the real money is. But anyway, of course, in the pursuit of getting favourable results, the pharma companies need to be a lot more than just thorough with their testing. The issue is, however, how far are they willing to go for data? Surely not too far. Surely the giant pharmaceutical conglomerates are ethical. The Tuskegee Experiments. Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm. Hey Chuddy, life got you stressed out over current events? Do you feel the need to turn to that destructive comfort that has such a grip in your life? Well, don't fret, my melancholic munchkins, for I have just the panacea for you. Fume. Fume is the premier in flavoured air, pioneering and refining the industry of making the atmosphere taste better without having to gunk it up with gnarly chemicals. With no vapour, nicotine or electronics, this chic suckle stick is au natural. With options such as crisp mint and orange vanilla, you will be able to wrap your lips around a wide range of yummy flavours. We all have that one little devil on our shoulder that weighs us down, and Fume hopes to help you in tackling it and getting back to enjoying the miracle of life. For example, my latest vice was eating lipstick and running into doors head first. My staff hated me for it, but once Fume entered the picture, I managed to calm down and stop stimming, as I could now use the fume itself to fidget. As you can see, it's got a very satisfying airflow valve. So now I walk into doors head first like a normal house animal and eat lipstick without fear. Thank you, Fume. So grab that neon coloured abomination and stick it in a L21A1 Rardin 30mm autocannon and fire it into the ocean, because now Fume is here and you won't have to go back. So come and join us reformed fumelings and start that righteous path to rid yourself of such vices. Go to tryfume.com/Dankula or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Dankula at checkout. Again, that is tryfume.com/Dankula or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Dankula at the checkout. Get Fume today and suck as much as I do. Now, you're all aware of what syphilis is, right? The harrowing disease spread by partaking in intimate relations. You may also know it as the French disease, on account of their hedonistic and godless activities in the bedroom, paired with the obvious fact that they smell. Syphilis, for the whimsically uninformed, is a sexually transmitted disease that comes in 4 stages, and it has a wide array of lovely symptoms like rashes, ulcers, gummas, which is a fucked up skin inflammation that looks like tumours, and if you manage to make it through such wonderful things like that, you prestige into neurosyphilis, which is when the syphilis spreads to your brain. where you can get, amongst many other things, loss of bladder control, mania, and meningitis. So, you'll go loopy, piss yourself, then die. Syphilis is why Al Capone was practically a vegetable by the end of his life. Syphilis can also rot your own nose off of your face. Regardless, throughout history, syphilis had naturally been a scourge upon the earth, with its contraction usually resulting in a fatally long, drawn-out, and painful death, paired with the shame of its acquisition vector as well. This pox was by all means a curse. After all, would you admit to getting it? Because you only get it from laying pipe in a mouldy house with an even mouldier woman. And no one wants to admit that. So, of course, when the fields of germ study and microbiology started hitting the stage, syphilis was, of course, going to be a prime target for academic scrutiny. Skipping over a bunch of history, because I'm not spending this video rattling off the history of fucking syphilis, we arrive in the Norwegian capital of Oslo in 1928, where the retrospective study of the same name had concluded. This was a study on the effects of syphilis when left untreated by observing 2,000 patients over the course of 20 years, running from 1891 to 1910. This study had thus been able to document the different ways syphilis manifests itself, and it had formulated a somewhat concise procedure to combat it. That is to say, the study found out how syphilis worked and also found some ways to fight it. Fast forwarding a decade and moving a continent away, we have the US Public Health Service, who wish to do a supplementary study of their own on the disease, focusing particularly on the... well, I can't really say the name of the study because YouTube, but basically it was meant to be a study of a particular group. As such, they approached the Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, in Alabama, and they organised a base of operations on campus. A cosy little spot right smack dab in the middle of Sweet Home Alabama. Rural, disconnected, and filled with minorities. A playground for nefarious deeds as far as the feds were concerned. With their boys now all set up, all they needed now was a group to study. Their choice, the very conveniently placed black sharecroppers in the surrounding area, seeing as Tuskegee and the surrounding areas were a majority black area of the former antebellum South. This was just a remarkable coincidence, and they definitely were not eager to take full advantage of it. Starting out, they spent the first 6 months studying the range of syphilis manifestations in the area of Macon County, obviously finding such cases of syphilis out in the wild. Now, I'm just going to say this now, so keep it in mind when we discuss the actual event itself. Your average doctor who actually understands the Hippocratic Oath and swore by it with actual meaning would of course find and help those poor people who were suffering from syphilis, regardless of any study or circumstances. Well, these researchers did not do that. In fact, they didn't really care. All they cared about was the data. Their rationale being that, frankly, these people wouldn't likely get any help anyways due to them living so rurally, so therefore the presence of the researchers wasn't exactly hurting them. Which makes absolutely zero sense. Now, at this point, you are probably asking why. Why go all the way out into rural Alabama to look at untreated syphilis on black people? Well, other than the fact it was ran by the US government in the 1930s, there was a belief amongst academics of the time that symptoms of syphilis can vary based on race, with whites meant to be more prone to the neurological issues, whilst people of colour are meant to suffer more from the cardiovascular symptoms because their brains are supposed to be smaller. I'm just quoting what doctors thought back then. Regardless, going back to our sussy study buddies, they managed to get under their watchful gaze 600 black men for the study, 201 of whom were completely healthy and were there just to be used as a control group, while the remaining 399 had a confirmed diagnosis of latent syphilis. These men were approached and coerced into the study based on the fact that they were poor rural working men who would otherwise have had no access to proper medical care. And as far as they were concerned, these nice, friendly physicians were just giving them regular medical checkups and access to any medication that they needed for any potential illnesses that may crop up. Now, here's the really fucked up thing, and there's going to be a lot of these in this video. Even though these men had syphilis, and the researchers wanted them in the study because they had syphilis, the researchers didn't tell the men that they had syphilis. In fact, they actually hid it from them. The excuse given to the sharecroppers was that they were being treated by the study group for bad blood, which is a delightfully vague and tastefully ominous term to use. So, on top of not getting informed consent, the researchers actually withheld the diagnoses from the men. Probably worried that the men would then run off and get some actual treatment which would affect the outcome of the study. And the researchers would also, as we will get into, withhold proper treatment from the study subjects as well. Just to basically see what would happen. Look, it's a story involving the American government colluding with the medical industry. Of course it's going to be fucked up. This is made even worse when you realise the fact that due to the men not being made aware of their illness, they were still having sex with people and spreading the disease around. So, with this study already being fucked from the outset, how could it get any worse? This is one of my videos. Things always get worse. Well, due to the nature of the previous studies on syphilis, there were already some treatments that were known and available. They were shoddy and a little bit toxic, but overall better than nothing. Not that it matters, of course, because these sharecroppers obviously wouldn't get access to such treatments. Instead, they were given placebos and other stuff that just wouldn't work. All in an effort to reassure the poor men that they were actually getting life-saving medical treatment for something while syphilis secretly ravaged their bodies. It is also worth mentioning that during World War II, 256 of the subjects ended up getting drafted. As such, they were sent for medical tests before they got drafted, and they were told straight to their faces, "You have syphilis, go and get it treated." To which the researchers promptly contacted the US military and had managed to deny them these treatments, because it would mess up the study. An example of such withholding of life-saving treatments is that by 1947, the widespread adoption of penicillin as a reliable treatment was rolled out, and it was considered normal and rather effective. This, however, would be detrimental to the study, as we can't just have them recover, we need them to suffer so we can get our data. So, womp womp for the sharecroppers. This is made even worse, however, when you discover that there were multiple other US government-run programs to eliminate syphilis in that region using penicillin. The researchers, however, prevented this as well. The masses will be free of the wee warts, except our test subjects. Though some of the men did actually end up getting a little dribble of penicillin due to said programs. They were promptly then exempted from the programs at the request of the researchers, having never gotten enough penicillin to actually combat the illness, so phew, close call, these guys almost got cured, and we can't have that. In all, the study lasted for 40 years, lasting from 1932 to 1972, and collating a lot of data about things we already knew about. but with the added benefit of racial targeting. After several researchers involved in the study actually then criticised it. They then formally filed complaints about the study with regards to the ethics of it, including the likes of Associate Professor Count Gibson, who may or may not have been a Sith Lord. But he did seem to have some morals as he filed his complaint in 1955. But there were other complaints filed after this. Irwin Schatz in 1965 filed a complaint. Peter Buxton in 1966 also filed a complaint, which is all well and good. But why the fuck did you wait until the study was like 23 years in before asking, Hans, are we the baddies? So, of course, at this point, Peter Buxton went public, which resulted in a New York Times headline on the 26th of July, 1972. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, class action lawsuits started flying in, particularly instigated by the NAACP in 1974. And we all know who they are, and we all know what song is playing in your head right now. They ended up getting the US government to cough up a pittance of $10 million, or about $63 million in today's money, because those fuckers just can't stop printing the fucking stuff, which does sound like a lot until you realise it is the US government, and they probably spend that much on cup holders and toilet paper every month. $63 million is nothing. I mean, it's even worse because this is post-Bretton Woods fiat money, meaning that money literally was worthless. A silver lining is that alongside the chump change given over by the government, they also agreed to give free healthcare to the survivors. So now they get to live out their very shortened lifespans a little bit less miserable. I love a happy ending. Of course, even with the study over and the payout achieved, it's not like it was the end of suffering for the survivors, because alongside the disease itself taking its toll on their bodies and minds, they had to live with the legacy of the experiment. Speaking of which, it's not shocking to find out that this wasn't exactly remembered very fondly, especially in the black community. Even without the rather obvious racial dynamics at play during this sad state of affairs, the damage it caused to public trust in the US government and medical industry as a whole cannot be denied. How there was any trust in any of them in the first place, I don't fucking know. Why were you trusting governments and pharmaceutical companies, you complete fucking idiots? But anyway, the result of the Tuskegee Experiments is very often cited as an example of horrendous things the state and corporations can do if there is no way to hold them to account. So, where does that leave us today? Well, the US government didn't actually formally apologise until 1997, presumably after everyone involved in the study had passed away. Like they always do whenever the CIA releases new documents that say, yeah, we actually did it by the way, but everyone involved in it's dead, so there's actually no one for us to punish. Sorry, we promise we won't do it again. They're all doing it again, right now, all the time. We'll find out about it in 20 years. But anyway, it was also in 1997 when Bill Clinton presumably played his saxophone in heckin' solidarity with the drilling spotted dicks that had the displeasure of a long and painful life with their minds being devoured from the inside and their noses falling off. In part, the justified distrust of health professionals in the black community ended up biting them in the arse a little bit, as during the AIDS crisis, many black people weren't exactly very eager to go to the doctors to get diagnosed, let alone treated. This persists today despite everything else, and they probably maybe are a little bit justified in doing so. After all, trusting the government on how diseases work is how you get locked in your homes for almost 3 years while they load you up with all sorts of funky concoctions. But don't worry about it, all of those 20-something-year-old peak physical fitness athletes all drop dead of natural causes and you're just a conspiracy theorist. Reagan was right about one thing in the end. The scariest thing that you can ever hear is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody subscribe.